Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administrating Your Public Servants. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the military script, the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars.
Okay, so while we circulate that around, some of you have seen that, so we're turning on the heater and then we're opening the door to get fresh air.
When you live by the shore, you just gotta trust me.
It's
I believe it.
you know, whatever. I'd say if my wife was here, I'd say that must be female logic. But anyways, I'm sorry.
At least you didn't say woman logic. Female don't exist.
Yeah, that's true. But
Statutory.
So anyways, this is about a guy that was a convicted murderer, and he went on parole in California and up and disappeared. And he disappeared for 32 years. And when they finally found him, he was right in front of them the whole time.
Oh.
How did they finally find him?
They stumbled across him. It was an accident. I can't remember. Read the article.
I did,
But
I remember.
But it was an accident, and he was using trusts. And he obviously wasn't using the name. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so we can learn a lot from this.
Oh, but they didn't know his name.
He'd been living under a false identity of James Edward Hurd, owned several properties in the Pasadena area, including a drug rehabilitation facility. He was probably dealing with the cops all day, every day, right?
Probably. Best place to hide the trees in the forest.
It took investigators 2 years to find Bradford, who had been keeping a low profile in the Pasadena area, with his businesses controlled by a trust and his credit cards and vehicles in the name of his treatment center. So it had nothing in his name.
So he was in a drug rehab facility, was that?
No.
He was running it.
He ran it.
Running. But I think only 2 years ago is when they realized it was him. Before that, they didn't even know who it was.
Yeah, it says here, agent arrested Bradford this week more than 32 years after he disappeared. The statement said a false birth certificate with Hurd's name was created in Alameda County in 1977, and a social security card was issued to him in 1978, both while he was still in prison. By the early 80s, Bradford began using the new name, and the name Richard Bradford disappeared on paper by 1992. A parole apprehension team began an investigation into his disappearance in 2010, and a year later learned he might be the same person as Hurd. Bradford's prison fingerprints were found to be a match with Hurd's from the Department of Motor Vehicles. Bradford's attorney contacted corrections officials at about the same time, saying he knew he was being sought and would like some time to turn himself in, but he never did. It took investigators 2 years to find him. He'd been keeping a low profile in the Pasadena area while his businesses were controlled by a trust, and his credit cards and vehicles in the name of his treatment center. So obviously the prison had his fingerprints, but if he didn't have a driver's license, okay, the motor vehicles had his fingerprints. If he didn't have a driver's license, then they wouldn't have even had that. See what I'm saying? So really,
Well, most of the driver's licenses, they don't get a fingerprint.
yeah, I guess in California they did for some reason. I don't know why.
In Texas they do, but it's an option. If you deny it, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, again, it's like I said in the other video, or in the other presentation, about belligerent claimant, right, is no, you're not getting my fingerprints. You know what I mean?
Court order.
Yeah.
And actually, could one not object to that because of the statutory nature of the judge?
Well, the judges are all operating under statute, so they can sit there and make an order, or they'll tell you, but it's not lawful.
Jurisdiction.
So this is Texas. Right, this is the Texas Code, Section 38(2) of the Texas Penal Code. It doesn't say it there, but that's what it is. A person commits an offense if he intentionally refuses to give his name, residence address, or date of birth to a peace officer who has lawfully arrested him. If you're not arrested, then they got no reason to be asking for anything.
Nice.
And if they're stopping you for a speeding ticket, he's not a peace officer. He's not in his official capacity. See what I'm saying? He's in his private capacity, so he's not operating as a peace officer. So, was there a breach of the peace? Is there a court order? Do you have evidence that I'm carrying passengers or property for hire? If the answers to these questions is no, then it's a pig you're dealing with, not a peace officer. If the answers to these three questions is no, then it's not an lawful arrest. It's an assault. Government issued identification means hearsay evidence. Date of birth is hearsay, name is hearsay, address is hearsay, image is hearsay, identification is hearsay. Everything they want from you is hearsay. They want you to give hearsay evidence against yourself. And the reason is that if anybody else gives it to them, that's inadmissible in a court of law. They want you to give it. They have to have you give it to them. Quit introducing evidence against yourself. It's a war crime. You don't have to, under the Geneva Convention, you don't have to give evidence against yourself. They try and coerce it, they're engaged in war crimes. The government issued identification. Is it yours? No. It belongs to the state. It's got state of Arizona or state of whoever all written all over it. Is it your name on it? No. It's the name of a Satanic trust. The state can revoke it. It means it's theirs. Every taxpayer is a Satanic trust, having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust, is to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. So that's a summary of that case. So it's a Satanic trust. A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust, the constructive Satanic Trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and U.S. Inc. That's again a summary of the congressional record on those 5 pages. A Social Security number is a number for a Satanic trust. No living soul has a Social Security number. There is no law that says anybody has to get a Social Security number. There's a regulation. Regulations apply to slaves. So if you complied with the regulation for the slaves, then you must be a slave. So again, don't be complying. And my attitude is I don't have a Social Security number, and that's what I tell them. My first case, when I went to the Supreme Court, I submitted an affidavit that said that I swear under penalty of perjury I don't have a Social Security number. I've never had a Social Security number. And yet I was suing the IRS because they were stealing my compensation. Right? No problem. It was no problem. They know it's not you. There's no law that says anybody has to get a Social Security number. There are court cases that say that you cannot cancel or revoke a Social Security number. So quit using it. If you cannot have it without producing a Social Security number, then do without it. When I sued FedEx, I affected service on FedEx, so I also wanted to affect service on one of the managers, but the guy that would process server couldn't get past security. And so, but he told me when he contacted me, he said that if I can come up with the guy's social security number, he can find out, he can serve him at his house. So, where you live, is it tied to a social security number somehow? You know, do they have it down somehow? You need to think about that.
Of course they do. I mean, when you get new employment, they update it all the time. Your
Well,
address.
if you're an employee, then you're a slave. I mean, when I was working on the Joint Strike Fighter program, I was working as a contractor, and there was no social security number associated with that. But the U.S. Marshals still found me there.
Okay.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
So-
you say you never had a social security number. Wasn't there a time in the past when you actively used one, not understanding what it was about? I mean, even when you were 16 or something?
Yeah, I guess you don't get it.
Still wasn't his.
It wasn't his.
Still not his. Never was his,
Okay,
never will
okay,
be his.
okay. But at that time you thought it was.
But now he knows it
never
isn't.
was. Okay, okay.
Now is what counts.
I was in the military, actually. I don't tell a lot of people about that, but I was in the Air Force for 4 years.
U.S., Canadian,
U.S. and Canadian.
and
And wouldn't they have to have one if you're in the military?
Of course. It's not mine.
You belong to them.
So I don't have a social security number. And I'm not a U.S.
So
citizen.
you can, under penalty of perjury, say that correctly.
That's right.
truthfully.
That's right.
You
That's
never
right.
had
and as
And
long
I
as you
did.
get offended.
And I did. And I did say it.
Nice.
And I do say it all the time.
Not have a social security number.
All you gotta think is if it was an LLC and they had a EIN number, you wouldn't say it's mine.
I understand, I got it.
That's,
I got it.
I'm saying, even for that.
Yeah, it's great.
If you have a mortgage, then your living location is in a database based on a social security number of the Satanic Trust associated with your name. If you are in the position of having withholdings taken from your compensation for the IRS thieves, then anyone can find you at your work. I filed a lawsuit against FedEx a few years ago, and when I was affecting service, I was communicating with the process servers, and they told me that if I knew a social security number, they could get a home address for service. It's all hearsay. Quit using the hearsay evidence. You don't have, I know I don't have first-hand knowledge of any of that stuff. The social security number is hearsay too, really. That's all hearsay.
Which is why migrants can use fake social security numbers for
Exactly.
years. They just make
Exactly.
it up.
Exactly. The date of birth is hearsay. Do you have first-hand knowledge of that? I don't.
Is there any reason ever in this system, meaning what we're looking to get out of, or some of us are out of already, is there any reason ever to say, use the Satanic Trust for any reason to benefit ourselves at all? Or is it like the idea is to be totally devoid of that?
Under the Uniform Commercial Code, if you try and do any of that, there's lots of people that try it. There's supposedly a Treasury direct account that's probably got millions in it. And there's people that claim that they've been able to access it and, you know, used it to pay bills and all sorts of stuff. The accepted for value process is a good example of that, and it's supposed to work getting access to that account to pay bills. I know people that have done that for a long time. But as soon as you start doing that stuff, it's all found under the Uniform Commercial Code, and you basically turn yourself into a slave by doing it.
A slave with benefits.
Right.
I suppose.
But wouldn't that Satanic, wouldn't that be that it's like having a corporation? You're not the man isn't doing the operation of the LLC and all of its business. So why couldn't there be that separation whereby you're just doing business as Sesta K and be the living man as well?
Theoretically, you could. You have to understand that by them doing all that stuff, by them putting that stuff out there, they committed treason.
Yeah.
And so they will never, ever tell you how to do it. And if they did, they'd be giving you evidence of their multiple felonies. And so then on top of it, most of the people that are doing that stuff are just nothing but thieves. And so if you participate in that program, then you're basically subjecting yourself to being a slave. And they're not gonna, they don't, if there was a system that could be used that worked consistently, I'd consider it, quite frankly. But I've never seen anything that worked consistently. And anybody that does have success once in a while, they change the rules. You know, they're thieves. They want to be able to, you know, think about it. You know, these wars have a purpose. Because there's millions of dollars in everybody's Treasury direct account. And when they send people off to war and they get killed, and they don't know how to claim the money in that account, the government gets it. So you don't think that they're going and keeping that hidden on purpose so that they can have it and use it to pay the bankster thieves?
Right, so I'm just wondering, just hypothetically, if they gave me, when I was born, they created this account.
They did.
In the name of this fictitious entity.
They did.
And they gave that to me.
And there's millions of dollars in it right now.
Right.
Tens
So-
of millions, maybe hundreds of millions.
Right.
I'll bet you in mine, there's billions. And the reason I say that is that I filed a commercial lien against J.P. Morgan Chase Bank for $500 million. And within weeks of me filing that thing, the U.S., they came out on national TV that J.P. Morgan Chase Bank had been fined $500 million. Well, I'll bet you they collected that money and put it into that account. And I've made several commercial liens worth hundreds of millions of dollars. As a matter of fact, I made one that's worth billions. And I'll bet you that all of that is in that account now. And so the account exists, there's no doubt in my mind. But how do you access it? I don't know.
Well, they're claiming that my research, which is of course faulty likely, but my current understanding is that it's all about discharging the debt that the straw man has. So you couldn't, you know, own, I mean, if you own land, like for example the mortgage, or you could pay that. You could, any of your debts that the straw man has, that were created in that name, is able to be discharged by virtue of the 1933 Act, when all the labor of the Sesta K people was hypothecated to the debt, because we were bankrupt as a nation. So that's the thinking behind it. They'll never give you the cash.
I don't think it was the labor.
But if you can create it, if you can find a way to create a debt in the name of the straw man.
Well, we weren't bankrupt as a nation either. The United States corporation was bankrupt.
That's correct.
Okay, so right, so
The people went.
right, so that's kind of the question is where the bankruptcies are, and I'm just looking at the fact that okay, it's still possible from where I'm sitting to possibly create a debt in the name of the entity and then discharge it.
Yeah, you can do that every day.
Right. So
Here, show you how it's done.
I'm going to turn this off now. So I'm just wondering, because they gave us this dual citizenship, and we're operating in this fictitious system, perhaps there's a way to keep the two separate in a way that doesn't damage either. We can be the living man and
Not-
still.
But they didn't give
Well-
it to you.
Who?
They didn't give you that account.
It's
theirs.
It's there for your benefit.
No, the
But
benefit
they never tell you that.
The benefit of
There's-
the benefit of the straw man, not my benefit. So if I create a debt in the name of the straw man and someone's going to give me value and create a debt and then I get to pay it using that, then I don't see how that goes. I don't see how I'm interacting with the living man.
Who's
Well,
doing it?
I'm doing
all
on
of those
behalf
words, in any court proceeding, the jurisdiction that you get is determined by the words that you use. Everything is words. And all the words that you're using to do that put you in the Uniform Commercial Code.
Me
and
or my
Whoever,
straw man.
you, because you happen to be there. And first of all, they'll never, ever, ever admit that any of that stuff is going on. And because it's treason. And so you'll be making your slave by doing it, okay? But there is a dissolve your debt manual, and I used it to dissolve, well, it was about $160,000 worth of IRS debt and about $45,000 worth of Citibank credit card debt. And but they don't just roll over. You have to force the issue. Like with mine, I sent them about a 4-page letter and told them, I think I already talked about it, told them that they could either close the account or zero it out and I'd run it up again. And they closed the account. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have probably done it that way. But that's the way I did it. But so, you could use that, and I know people that did this procedure in the 90s. Okay, I did this like in 2014. I know people that did this procedure in the 90s because they told me they were doing it. They never did tell me exactly how they did it, but they were told. Remember Robert Savarese? I don't remember him. Anyways, they told me they were doing it, and they told me enough about it to know that when I saw this, I knew this is how they were doing it. See what I'm saying? This is available in the files directory of the Yahoo group if you want it. And it uses basically banker's acceptance. You know, I can show you. It's what? How many pages is this? It's 77 pages. But you got to understand that when you do it, you're going into their system. And when you go into their system, you give up your sovereignty, and you can't get it back. Once you give up your sovereignty, it's gone as far as that transaction's concerned. Okay, the courts look at every transaction on it in its own by itself. Okay, so as far as that transaction's concerned, your sovereignty's gone. You're a slave. Remember the Clearfield Trust Doctrine, Clearfield Trust Company versus United States. That when you use their commercial paper, well, that's definitely using their commercial paper. Okay. When you use their commercial paper, you're not considered a sovereign.
For that transaction.
For that transaction.
Right. So my question would be is just, okay, let's assume that I get a car loan and it's $15,000, $20,000, and I use I'm now in debt, the straw man, because I've used the government ID, which
Theoretically, it should be able to. Should be able to use that for any bank debt, any utilities,
right,
any
right.
government debt.
Right. And
Different from a school loan debt?
No, you use it on school loan
Yeah.
too.
Same thing?
Yeah.
That's bank debt.
Yeah. Because your straw man has the debt, not you. So
But
the discharge comes from, but you just can't.
But
get
it
the
requires
cash.
you to file taxes, not file taxes, but you got to send it to the IRS. If you've never filed taxes, then it shouldn't be a big deal. But you got to send it to the
So
IRS.
in Anna von Rietz's core base information during the process of going through it all, she begins to state that the IRS is our friend, the way this discharge system was
They
set
can
up
be. They
in
can be.
1933. They basically said, you're all these sestakes are broke. We're going to, you know, confuse the issue. You're going to work all your life. You're going to pay these taxes, and we're going to let you go into debt, and your labor is going to pay off the name's debt. So in return for that, FDR made a promise through the House Joint Resolution in 1933 that every debt any one of you slaves makes, we will discharge in return for giving us all your gold and all of your sovereignty and all of that. So that still exists today, according to...
Yes, I've heard that, but it's not an area that I consider an area of my expertise. I've done it, you know, once. I wouldn't do it again unless I absolutely had to. I have credit cards, quite frankly, and I just pay them.
No, they in the name, if I may, if you're okay to tell us, is it you, or is it the straw man, or is it the living man?
Well, the living
Man
man
can.
doesn't have credit cards. No
Right,
living man can
so
have
you're in
credit
the
cards.
system, right?
The straw man is. I've
Right.
separated myself from the straw man.
Right, and I'm just saying that I think it's potential that there may be a way to just continue.
There might be,
just
but
like you're living in
they're
this other
thieves.
world as well. I
They're
know.
thieves,
I know.
and you know that they're gonna try, and so that's why I don't do it any more than I absolutely have to.
You're limiting your exposure.
That's right. And
I
so
agree.
Yes. You can, and so that's why you know, I don't. It's really not an area of expertise that I have. I know how to make it so they don't want to talk to you. You see what I'm saying? And that's really what I can do. Now, as far as participating in that system, you can, again, you're dealing with thieves. So why on earth would you expect thieves to be anything but thieves? And so, you know, you have to understand that. And I only go there as little as possible. I mean, I have credit cards. They're useful for some things, like if I want to rent a car. They won't rent you a car without a credit card. And so I maintain them for that purpose, really. That's the only reason I have them. And the rest of the time I just pay cash. You know, pay cash for everything. Use Bitcoin. Keep as little money as possible in the bank. And deal with it that way. You see what I'm saying?
So I'm just concerned that if it's not a crime for me to use the Sestake name, then I'm just, you know, like, because obviously you're not doing anything illegal.
Well, that's true, but you just have to be careful because there's lots of crimes out there, and they like to sell people into slavery, and there's lots of people I know that had it happen, okay, for using bonds, okay. Doing bonds is one good example. There's lots of people I know that went to jail over doing bonds. The only people I know that didn't go to jail doing bonds was they left the figure blank.
What do you mean doing a bond?
They did a bond. The IRS says, you owe us $1 million, so they said they did a bond. Here's a bond as payment for this $1 million. Next thing you know, the FBI's at the door knocking them up and knocking on the door, dragging them off and put them in jail for 2 or 3 years.
Well, some is a lot more than that. Some
Right.
is decades.
I know.
But the A for V, the fact that my understanding is if they would have just paid that with their discharging that debt of the straw man.
There are thousands of people trying to do
See,
exactly what you're saying.
see, the A for V is way better, in my opinion, okay? Because what you're essentially saying, this is what I don't like about the bonds, is you admit the debt, okay? You say, yes, there is a debt, here's payment. You see what I'm saying? That's a major mistake. The debt is a fraud, okay?
Right.
So when you do A for V,
You're giving them a
You're-
piece of paper.
you're saying, I accept that for value.
A for V.
Okay, in other words, we all know this is a fraud, but that's okay, I'll accept it for value. You see what I'm saying? And you can go and collect it from this account. You see what, it's completely different. Completely different. And so, And even when I did this, I did some of them where I filled in the figures that they wanted. I did some of them where I put in figures that was more than what they wanted. I wanted to see if they'd send me a refund.
You can actually request it.
No, I didn't.
Whatever's left over, send it back.
I
Some
didn't.
people do.
I should have. But anyways, I put in more than what they were supposed to get. Some of them I left blank, and I put a cover sheet, and I said, please feel free to put in any figure you deem appropriate. You see what I'm saying? And here, I'll show you. It goes through and shows you the...
So you've used A for B successfully?
I would say successfully, yes, because IRS never did contact me after that. They went away completely. And Citibank, they turned it over to third-party debt collectors. You know, so I mean that just tells me they're thieves. They want to get paid more than once. But they never did over those credit cards. They never did put anything negative in the credit report, as I told them I'd sue them if they did. And they just turned it over to third-party debt collectors, and you know, after...
But they got paid by virtue of the A for B.
Of course they did.
So that's my point. The Sestake, the Sestake name was what had the debt, and you were the rightful executor of that name.
See, here's how you do it right here. Endorsement. You do the banker's acceptance, accepted for value, exempt from levy in red ink. You sign it in blue, and then exempt ID number, which is the number of the Social Security number.
Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit. And that's at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. And I've also got some videos uploaded to BitChute. This is my front page of my YouTube channel. Notice the arrow is pointing at the bell, and the subscribe button's already been clicked. That's why it's checked. Normally it would be red. And when you click on that bell, that one there is not clicked because doesn't look like it's ringing. When you click on it, a pop-up comes up, and there's a box you have to check to be notified about uploads. This is Steemit. The left arrow is where you click to upload an article. The middle arrow is how many votes it's got, and the right arrow is where you make comments. And this is Steemit again, and the arrow is pointing at Crypto Wallet. There's a hand there. When you move your mouse there and touch the profile name, this pop-up window comes down, and that's where you can follow or unfollow someone.
John Q. Doe with that Social Security number.
Right.
And then that's part of it. So you go, here we go. This is and it's interesting because the IRS they were so nice, they sent me a money order that I could use. They send you the bills, right? The IRS bill, and it has the money order at the bottom.
I haven't seen that, no.
Well, yeah, they do. And so then all you do is you write on the top of it, you write money order. And on their paperwork, they said, make your check or money order payable to the U.S. Treasury.
So you just made your money order payable.
There you go. Right. You write in it, right in at the top, money order, and then it says pay to. You write in United States Treasury. You put in the date. You fill in the number. You do it just like that, in blue ink. And you know, there's more to it than that, but that's about it.
Right. And my thought is that this is the mechanism that the slaves, the Sestake person, has been, since they created it, and they basically said any debt that this name creates, we agree to discharge. So that you just can't get money. The people that get the money, try to get the money, are the ones that get into trouble.
You know, that's possible. You know, I've heard that, and you know, quite frankly, it's entirely possible. But again, these guys are thieves, and You know, they deliberately, if they do that, they don't tell anybody. So then they let their low intelligence thugs go ahead and violate your rights and all the rest of it. You see what I'm saying?
But I'm not so sure I can't have something of both worlds, because it's just like the LLC. The living man is operating, signing for the LLC and all that.
That's
like
true.
That's
true.
This is what I'm.
That's all I'm
confused
saying.
about.
That's all I'm saying is that there's a risk. That's all I'm saying is there's a risk, and you need to be prepared to accept the risk.
Which is
Jail, fines.
jail and fines
Exposing
for
yourself
what?
to the slave.
No, I wouldn't say jail and fines. The big risk is that we're feeding this whole big beast that's taking over everything. That's the risk.
Feeding it?
Yeah, you're
Well,
giving it power, you're giving it life, you're giving it, every time there's movement, somebody's making something. You know, credit card companies, they gotta hire people, they make fees, they're always taking their little bit. Any movement that's happening is keeping this alive.
There's also a risk that
Yes,
it's
compared to
very
just telling
technical.
the
They don't make it simple, and if you make a mistake, who knows what'll happen? Like the bonds is a good example. People did the bonds. Now, whether they made a mistake or whether it was just improper for them to do it, I don't know, but they ended up in jail. That's all I'm saying. Now, the accepted for value is better because of the whole philosophy, okay? You're basically saying, yeah, we know this is all a fraud, but I'll go ahead and accept it. You see what I'm saying? Accepted for value. Accepted, it's really a fraud, but I'll accept it for value. You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying how much this is worth. I'm just saying I'll accept it for value, whatever value you think it's worth. You see what I'm saying? And so there's a lot of validity to that. But I have this, and it's available for people to use, but I don't use it unless I absolutely have to. And quite frankly, like the credit cards that I have right now, I just pay them off. I don't do this with it.
Well, if I were going to try to prosecute you as a slave, I would say you've already violated the separation between the two. Like, I don't see any difference between having one credit card and doing A for V for buying a car for $30,000. Signing
The difference is the value. The difference is the amount of money.
Right.
The difference is that the procedures are a little bit different when you're dealing with a dealer down there,
Okay.
and it's different. I
Depends
can
on
tell
what
you
the-
that.
depends
People have tried using closed accounts and writing a check on a closed account, and sometimes that doesn't turn out too well.
Yeah, no,
No, you
no,
can't
the
run
whole
I
point-
got arrested right at the dealership.
Yeah,
I
the
know.
point
I
is
believe
that
you.
the point is,
BT on a closed account.
I'm sorry.
Closed account can only be bank to bank. You can't write a check on it.
Well, and so, but and I don't know, but this is just stuff I've heard. I've never done that kind of
That's
stuff.
the thing with a closed account, because there's plenty of money there, on a closed account. But what you're addressing, let me reiterate again. I mean, he's a man on land, but he can go in the water.
Right,
Okay?
I'm saying
That's
I like
what
to
he's
swim.
doing.
I like
You
to
have-
swim.
you
If I
have
can
to-
swim
right.
in
You-
the sea,
Exactly.
come
But
out
you
when
come
I
out,
want.
you can't live there.
and the shark can't
So-
bite me because I'm in a cage or have shark repellent.
Right. So he knows who he is,
Right.
and he can go in if and when he wants to.
But then I
Okay,
leave.
but he has to come out.
Right.
Right.
He can't stay there.
I don't want to stay there.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
For
But
example,
you can go in and come out, but you have to know who you are,
Right.
and you better be using the right words. The word jurisdiction literally breaks down as law speak, how you speak to the law.
Everything is about words. Absolutely everything is about words. And so, I've been able to make it so they don't want to talk to me. And I don't do this any more than I absolutely have to.
Right, and I mean, I want to be in the world, not of it. I've considered, I have had to disappear before, but not, in the way you have been. So I did, and it was great, but then it didn't allow me to just interact and so on. So I'm just wondering if we can be in the world and not of it.
You can.
Using
You
the A
can.
for V.
There's probably people that are. They say
Using
Bill Clinton is one of them.
Using the T, right?
If
Using
you
the TD.
want to put yourself in the caliber of people that Bill Clinton's in, I don't know that I'd want to do
Really
that.
do we really need to get, $80 million out of some fictitious account with fictitious FRNs in value, or is it because they've been robbing all of our grandparents and great-grandparents and all that for all these years, and controlling the assets. And all they're saying is, look, if you want to get a little bit out using the A for V under this legal entity fictitious name, then here's the way to do it. And that's what according to some, they say in order for it not to be fraud, what they did in 33 was give the mouse a way out.
Remedy.
Yeah, a remedy.
And you know, that's entirely possible. As far as $100 million is concerned, they say Bitcoin, or I should say Litecoin, is going to go to $1 million next year, which means I've got 100 of them, so then I'll be worth 100 mil next year. And so I don't need a bank account to do that, and I could transfer my 100 mil to Bill there,
I'll
just
take
like
it.
that, and
What about us?
and
10%.
and there'd be no questions by the bankster thieves. You see what I'm saying? Whereas sending even $10,000 to someone nowadays gets you raked over the coals. You know what I mean?
So
But-
another way that to make the A for V easy to understand, all these remedies are there. Even bankruptcy, you can get rid of all this stuff with bankruptcy.
And when the
So
bank,
it's there.
right,
for
so
the-
in fact, I've gone bankrupt 20-some years ago, and now I understand they just use my money to pay everybody. I thought they were doing me a favor. You know, it was like this asset, that the inheritance aspect was already there.
Yeah.
So that maybe it was just they were using the access to the
Well, and they had to maintain the illusion by making you go into poverty.
But it's all fake money anyway.
Right.
It's all debt. It's, you know, it only has perceived value that we accept.
So what would happen if one went into debt on paper for $29,000 for a car, right? You do the A for V, the straw man now owns it, you sell that car, you convert that to gold and silver, then what?
Quite frankly, I wouldn't do that. What I would do if I was to do anything, okay, is I would do it with an unsecured credit card, because you can just walk away from that anytime you want, and there's nothing they can do. I would, if I was going to do it, that's how I would do it. If I wouldn't do it with anything like a car, because you drive the car around. They can track those cars from satellites, so they know exactly where you are at any time, any place, and they can look you up anytime they want.
And
That credit card, there's nothing saying you have to use it. There's a million ways you can use it without being tracked. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of things that are, the credit card can be liberating, whereas the car, having that car registered with the satellite ID, and it's got satellite, it's chip, they track those things. Matter of fact, there's even if you read in the purchase contract, they even talk about how they can repossess it because they can track it, and they'll repossess
Right.
it.
No, my point is to use it as a way to convert the TDA money, debt, quickly into lawful money.
Yeah.
It's just a mechanism.
I agree, but again, they're thieves, and a lot of times, you know, it used to be that it worked pretty good, okay? The people that I knew in the 90s, Robert Savarese is one guy, he's dead now actually, but he used to do it in the 90s, and he'd pay utility bills. He actually paid a house off by doing that, and it all worked. Okay, they actually sent back statements saying it's paid. You see what I'm saying? And it is a lot the same way that Bill talks about this postmaster paying off his mortgage, right? Is the same way. They send you back a statement saying paid in full. Great. If they do that, that's great. But many of them are thieves, and they won't do that. They'll send you another bill. They want you to pay it 2 or 3 times. You see what I'm saying? And see, if you look on this, there's actually, it shows a bunch of bills that were paid. Come on. Yeah, right here's one. Well, that's one that didn't get paid. That's actually an example of an IRS statement.
Right, so basically when the utility company sends you the bill, it's got a place for you it has what is owed, and one converts it by writing on it, turn it into a money order and just send it to them, and then the utility company goes and gets the the equal amount from our account that has been there.
They do that even if you don't do this. They double dip.
Or even
Here's
triple
the
if you
Chase
fill it out.
account.
Right.
Here's the Chase account. And it shows where the payment was made. But they're not all honorable.
Well, is that our problem? I mean, honorable, that's their problem.
They're charging it off, so yeah, kind of.
What I found a lot of times too is, you know, they don't know how to process it internally. You know, and it's just like Glenn was saying, you know, it's a matter of education on their side too.
And also on our side, sometimes
Right.
it's not done properly.
Exactly. So there's a lot of different factors. You know, and you know, we're all in our own little battles. We try this, we try that. Hey, it moves forward, and it's like a big chess game. You know, like he says, they're thieves. I mean, we're playing chess. We move, they move, we move, they move, and that's how it goes.
I didn't pay my electric bill for 6 months, and they kept giving me power, and they kept billing me. I said, show me the contract. There must be a contract before there can be a bill. I want to see the parties on the contract. And finally, they shut me off, and then I paid them.
Here's the contract.
But it did go 6
That's
months
cute.
with service without
Oh, yeah, they'll take
Yeah, but you eventually paid for that 6 months then, didn't you, too? Yeah.
But I thought I had a good question. Who are the parties on the contract?
Well, right. Well, when you opened the account, how did they?
Well, 40 years ago, I don't know what I did, but probably I put down the straw man name or whatever. Yeah, but I wanted to see the parties of the account, and they wouldn't flesh that out.
Right, but the A for V would have basically paid it every month.
Right, if it works.
Right.
I've done it 20 times. I've never had one that worked.
Okay.
Process this thinking.
20
okay?
times it doesn't work.
The
Same
illusion
company or a
is,
different company?
Phone, water, yeah.
Yeah, you might be doing something not correct.
Well, you don't know.
I've had, not with utility bills, but I've had some stuff go away with it, and other people have too. There's a woman that, she's from New York. She teaches all that, how to do utility, you know, anything
Well, I
like
don't
that.
doubt that it works, but I couldn't figure out how, that's all.
Maybe we'll share something.
I don't have any debts anymore.
Well, make some.
Would that be a better option to do for a school loan debt, except for value like that?
I don't know if that's gonna work with that.
You could try it. If they turn it down, make your payment. I mean, nothing's lost.
Right.
Yeah, the A for
Let
V.
me know if it works.
not.
Really serious.
Student loans is like we were talking earlier.
This book is available in the files directory of the Yahoo group, so you're welcome to download it and look it over.
And
And
the A for V is how old is
it's
this?
called the Dissolve Your Debt Manual.
Right.
You can also download it from online too. It's online for free.
I've seen it.
Basically, your account.
Copyright 2010, 2011, 2012. So that was when it was written.
That's pretty recent.
It is.
What year is it?
2010, 11, and 12.
There might even be a later version by now,
Might be.
because everything changes.
Yeah, I saw it.
So, anyways, let's go back to the.
Back to being invisible.
yep. Let's keep going.
Did you realize?
So it's all hearsay. All the stuff they want is hearsay. Quit giving evidence against yourself. There are various degrees of being able to disappear. If these things are done properly, you will become transparent. They will not be able to see you. It's basically you can't see the forest for the trees. You do not need to go to some foreign country or open bank accounts in foreign countries. You know, when I was in my 20s, my brothers and different people were all the rage about foreign trusts and tax-exempt foundations and the Panama and all this other crap, tax havens and all that. You don't need to do all that stuff. That stuff is actually quite expensive too.
Expatriation is expensive, and there's no need to do it.
And you can be right here, right in front of their face, and there's not a damn thing they can do about it if you do it right. Right here, right in front of their face. You do not need to, okay, you can be, right here, right in front of their face. I already said that. I do not have assets, but I do own property. I do not have a spouse, but I am joined in the bonds of holy matrimony. I do not have children, but I have sons and daughters. Or better yet, I have property and show a picture. That's what Carl Lentz did, right?
Property, yeah.
I do not have income, but I do get compensation for my labor. I do not drive, but I do travel.
I call it steer.
And again, it comes down to using the right words. They have you trained to use the words they want you to use. So you gotta get that out of your head. You gotta start thinking about these words and using the right words. I do not have an employer, but I do exercise my right to pursue happiness by getting compensation for my labor. That's what you do when you work and you get money. That's called the pursuit of happiness and getting compensation for your labor. I do not have a government-issued identification card, but I do have an American National Identification Card provided by NSCA.US. And actually, it could be, they actually call it a government-issued ID because they have established themselves as the International Environmental Court. If you read that Public Law 92-500, it actually talks about the Environmental Court and all sorts of stuff that they've done, you know.
Is one's birth date, I presume, is not on that? What is on that?
You can use a Julian date on that so they can't track you down.
Well, there's no birth date on it.
Well, they put
And I don't know
birth date
about
on
a Julian date.
Julian date 13 days prior for the...
It's issued date and expired date.
That's it.
And there's no birth date on here at
No
all.
age, nothing, it's just who you
Take a
are.
look.
Thank you.
You decide.
It's 13 days plus some years, isn't it? 13 days
Now
plus
it's 13
4,000.
days, 13 years.
13 years? Well, yeah, I think the joint days,
Yeah, mine's got a born date on there.
Nobody has a birth certificate.
No, he doesn't.
Nobody has a social security number. Nobody has a driver's license.
nobody called 9/11.
Here's the
A date of
American
birth
also? The
is
American
hearsay. A date of birth is hearsay, and I have no first-hand knowledge of that. I transfer any real estate into trust, but actually I own quite a bit of real estate, but it's under Glen Winningham House of Fern and with the land patent. I transfer vehicles to trusts. I set up utilities in the name of trusts or LLC. Of course, I don't have any utilities in my name right now, or I don't use utilities right now, basically.
One question on that. Could you, if you had utilities in the name of a trust, and like you ran up the bill or whatever, and you couldn't afford to pay, could you collapse the trust and start with another one?
Well, you can always, well, first of all, they want an EIN number, okay? So unless you want a statutory trust, you're not going to be able to put it under a trust. You have to put it under an LLC. And with the LLC, you know, the LLC doesn't own anything. At least mine, the one I manage, doesn't own anything. Everything's leased. So if you want to sue it, and if you think you're smart enough to sue an LLC without getting tax liability, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday.
And so, yeah, we talked about that yesterday. Because when you sue an LLC, all you get's really is tax liability. So if somebody wants to sue it, knock it out. Knock yourself out. Go ahead. You know, have fun.
What's the situation when one has a trust vehicle regarding the question about the state insurance? Do they ever, like, how do you handle
I
that?
still get insurance.
In the name of the trust?
No, it's got to be in my name.
So you get,
Because I'm the driver.
how do you have, who gives you insurance as a driver? I mean, as a
Progressive.
traveler?
Progressive.
Okay, so now you're a driver?
Do it again?
Yeah, it's a driver. Yeah, it says a driver. Yeah, yeah.
So you're a driver?
Yeah.
So you're part of the,
Well, you can't technically, if the vehicle's registered with the state, then you got to have a driver's license to drive it. The only time you don't have to have a driver's license is if it's not registered. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profile, Sovereign Living and Sovereignty International. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group at Facebook called Sovereignty International is being deleted. Facebook is a has-been. I don't even go there. I haven't been there for months. And
And if I wanted to go there and ban everybody off my group, you know, that's the way I would delete it, because I'm not going to let Facebook profit from my hard work. Meanwhile, I have friends that are basically on there managing things, and you know, they can have at her for all I care. Anyways, my Yahoo private group is called Administering Your Public Servants. My Google private group is called Administering Your Public Servants. And follow me on Twitter at Engineer Win. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. And there's a link to my BitChute channel, although I don't have all my videos uploaded there. There's only a few. Well, there's quite a few. I've got quite a few, but still, it's not all of them. Check out my other videos: Bankster Thieves playlist, Roman cult playlist, bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bar members 1 through 3, do-it-yourself how not to volunteer for the selective service in the draft, martial law is here, do-it-yourself no income tax, do-it-yourself free mail, do-it-yourself kangaroo courts 1 through 13, Canada Border Pigs playlist, bar members and their Satanic Connections playlist.
Registered with the state.
In our
So-
state, you can do farm vehicles.
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah, but you still have to have a driver's license, don't you?
No,
No.
no license.
Not for a farm vehicle.
Oh, really?
There's no
an
license, no
exclusion of
insurance, and
So you
but
could
you have to be in the operation of some type of
They
farming.
want you to have those things, but you don't have to have those things, and it's a good idea to have a bale of hay in the back.
Have, oh, a bale of hay.
And the goat.
You ain't all the hay,
So
actually.
the driver's license you utilize, you're just saying you don't have one, but you really do have one? I'm just trying to understand.
My straw man has a driver's license,
Okay.
but I never carry it with me. When I drive my private truck, I never carry a driver's license with me. It is registered with the state, but it's registered under the name of a trust.
And so you're driving it.
I'm traveling
He's
in it,
traveling, yeah.
Okay,
and
you're
I
traveling
don't
in it.
have a driver's license. If they want to stop me, you know, which is going to be their worst nightmare. I think
see.
they know
I
that
got
by
you.
now.
Okay, so.
If they want to stop me, then I will not
So
have
they
a
could
driver's
issue you
license.
a summons, and that starts that.
Well,
whole
they don't
process.
bother with that.
Not anymore, right?
Yeah, right,
Okay.
right.
It's being proactive part of it. That's part of what
Okay,
he's
thank
done.
you. I'm just trying to get clear on.
believe 4:30.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's not 4:30 yet, is it?
10 minutes.
Yeah, so that's fine.
It's 10 after, isn't
10
it?
after.
Which clock's correct?
It's
No, no, no.
4:10
Four
after,
ten.
4:10 after 4,
That
4:10.
one's
They
at
both
Oh, it's
4:20.
10 out of 4.
Yeah. 20 minutes.
Somewhere.
Two times.
I got 10 after 4, and this is on world time.
Okay.
Right.
So we should probably try and cover as much territory as we can here.
Yeah.
One more question.
Don't get me going, let's go.
Yeah, keep going.
I use common law identification cards. I make it so they do not want to talk to me. Watch the do-it-yourself estoppel certificates video and the do-it-yourself traffic stop video. I use Bitcoin, cash, gold, or silver coin. I open bank accounts with no social security numbers. And the easiest one is Bank of America. I just recently called them up because they had a pop-up in when I log into my account, they had this pop-up saying, we need more information. And when I click on it, it's a social security number. So I called them up and I read them the Riot Act, and I told them they're involved in war crimes by compelling the disclosure of information that's none of their business. And immediately they came back, we're sure sorry. We're one of few banks that does not require a social security number, and the thing went away. I'm telling you. So they even told me that, and I said, good. I'm glad to hear that.
You have to file a W-8, just, you know,
Nope.
use that phone, no.
No, I told them when I opened the bank account, I actually used a U.S. passport,
Okay.
and I did not fill out a W-8. A W-8 really is for if you live in a foreign country. They want a foreign country address, and what they do is I told them that there's no law that says anybody has to have a social security number, and it's a felony to compel a disclosure of a social security number, and they opened the account. And what happened is, if you watch my Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act, that guy on that video, his name's Al Barcroft, he sued him. He talks about it in the video. He sued him, and that's why they don't require a social security number, because they got sued. And the rest of them, being the thieves that they are, haven't been sued yet, and people are too clueless to know to sue them. And I got too many things on my plate, otherwise I would, you know. But
Is
so,
your name still in upper caps on the checks?
actually, on the website, it's upper and lowercase.
But on the printed checks, it's
On the printed checks, I can't remember off the top of my head. Usually the way it works with the printed checks is I tell them how the upper and lowercase. I tell them this is how I want it.
Or you can order them yourself.
Yeah.
Print them.
Well, I do order them myself.
They'll
But
do anything you want.
but so, you know, anytime anything like that, I always tell them upper and lowercase. But the interesting thing is on the website, if I log into it's upper and lowercase for sure then, and that they have complete control over. I have no control over. See what I'm saying? But so bring forward all the rights and privileges of the original land patent on your land, and see the Do You Own Your Land video. There's a set of books called About Perpetual Traveler, written by somebody who used the pseudonym of W.G. Hill. There's a PT1 series and a P22 series. And there's books like How to Get a Foreign Passport. Okay, there's all sorts. There's really interesting. Some of them, the more recent ones, are quite expensive. You can find them on eBay and Amazon. The important thing to understand is they tell you how to. This is the power. Is to be a traveler all the time. Okay, you're never in one place. You travel around, and so then you're not there long enough to get into their databases. You see what I'm saying? If you lived in hotels all the time, you'd never show up in anything.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying? And so it's quite how would you put it? Liberating. Okay, to do that kind of stuff.
Would you
So,
repeat the name of the book and or the author, you think? I think it's Personal Traveler or something.
Perpetual Traveler. I've actually got 5 of them.
W.G. Hill.
If you have a thumb drive, I'll give you 5 of them. I've got one, the
Okay.
passport book,
Okay.
one how to become a, it's a, I think it's a general consul, and it tells you
Honorary
how.
consul.
Huh?
Honorary consul, it says there.
Oh, there we
Last
go.
thing.
Yeah, right. Okay. So some of them are old, and they might be out of date, but there's a lot of really good information in there. The one about how to open a bank account, it's a little bit more difficult, but that might be changing now that Trump's in office and the communist is out of there. And, you know, I don't know. That's all I can say. There's a monthly newsletter by Simon Black, Sovereign Man Newsletter. Talks about passport requirements in many countries and the easiest ones to get. It's interesting to note that he talks about Brazil, how if you go there and your wife has a baby while you're there, then the baby's an automatic Brazilian citizen, and it's a shoo-in for you to become Brazilian citizen too. So you could actually get Brazilian citizenship just by going there and having a baby. You see what I'm saying?
Baby.
Huh?
Anchor baby.
An anchor baby, that's right. But it's the only problem is a friend of mine has been talking about going to Brazil, and he had a friend of his that went down there, and now his friend is saying that it's kind of turning pretty lawless right now because of all the stuff that's going on with the president and the parliament and all that
A
stuff.
lot of corruption on there, a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, so it might not be a good time to go to Brazil.
It's never a good time to go in a lot of places. There's a lot
Well,
of robberies,
And
all kinds of stuff.
and that's what I tell people is they ask me, why don't you just go to another country? And I say, well, I can't in another country claim the things that I can claim here, you know. And yes, we have corruption, we have our problems, but I can't be the king in another country, you know. I can be the king here, and so why would I go somewhere else?
I think we're on the right track. This is what we should be doing.
Right, don't run, fight back.
I think it is.
Because if we can't do it here, it's not going to happen anywhere. Maybe Iceland, that's about it.
Yeah, well,
We need to learn from Iceland.
yeah, we do. But so.
That's why I had to go out.
so you can get cold.
But that's the Sovereign Man newsletter. It's a good newsletter, and they got lots of good information. How to disappear. There's a website called www.howtovanish.com. That's another good one. I get emails. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren, the children of Israel, and maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die. We the people need to wake up and start taking care of business, is really what it comes down to. We need to get rid of this legislature and get an assembly, okay, and start running our government. Through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now the long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not.
Robert Fox told me the same, the Deuteronomy. If a man captures you...
Grid.me shut down on 15 December, and YouTube channel called Sovereignty International is deleted. I made the exclusive content available on my website. There are two subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. I've also raised the rates a little bit for my videos, but anybody who currently has videos at the previous rates they will stay at those rates as long as they maintain those subscriptions. So the new rates are $29.99 a year for the videos only, and $49.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. Now, there is some limitations on the kind of consultations that I can do because I'm not a liar. Well, I meant an attorney. No, actually, I meant a liar. Because, but I can tell you what I would do in a certain circumstance and where to find the forms. Now, the unlimited consultations does not include phone calls. It does not include babysitting. It does not include preparing documents or reviewing documents. When I say babysitting, that means, getting 5 emails a day, about how to do this and how to do that. If you have a situation and explain your situation to me, I can tell you what I would do under that circumstance. If you need somebody to hold your hand to fill out a form, then that's called preparing documents or reviewing documents. You see what I'm saying? And that's not included in that. But I'm available to help with that. But again, that requires a donation. The important thing to understand here is the only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight the battles. I need other people that are bringing up the right issues that are on point and fighting the battles as well. If you want to get a subscription as a donation, it's a modest donation. There's no doubt about it, but a whole bunch of people chipping in a little bit, and it can add up pretty fast. So everything's appreciated. I'm currently publishing 1 video a week, and also at the bottom I have links to the sovereigntyinternational.fyi. The top link is to a page that has all of my videos listed in an organized sort of way based on certain categories or types of videos, so it makes them easy to find, because they're not necessarily easy to find on YouTube. So the free videos are on the top link, the subscriber videos are on the bottom link, and now you can go to that link on the bottom link, and if you don't have a subscription, it won't help you because you'll still won't be able to see the videos. But the at any rate, there's where the videos are located. You can find there's links to all those videos on my website. It makes it a lot easier to find the videos when you're watching them, so you can look at them or watch the videos based on areas of study that you're working on, and that kind of thing. Anyways, some of my exclusive content is Arlington Private Information Share, which is 9 videos alone. I also have a land deed training, a couple of land deed training videos. I've also got estoppel certificates training. I've got foreclosure estoppel certificates training. I've got corporate denial training. I've got toll roads notice and demand training. I've got invoice training. I've got notice of void judgment training. There's also revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, federal habeas corpus training, revocation of voter registration training, criminal complaint training. And I've actually got several videos for criminal complaint training, and there are probably more as I come up with issues that people need to be aware of. Lawsuit training is one that I don't have up yet. It's that's quite a complicated issue because every jurisdiction is going to be a little bit different. But I'll probably so when I do put them up there, there'll be probably several videos on that as well. And then there's other training depending on what people are looking for and need help with. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free on my 2 private groups at Yahoo Groups and Google Groups in the files directory, and the Google Groups is under Google Docs. The exclusive content is above and beyond the bare minimum that you need to understand what's going on, and free yourself. And so that's why it's exclusive, and it's training on how to do the stuff. If a lot of people, if you have some knowledge, you can figure the stuff out by yourself. But the training is available if you need some help in that respect.
I will show unto you the judgment of the great whore. This is the Roman cult, in my opinion. The great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Gee, that sounds like Admiralty Maritime Law and the Roman cult. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Gee, that sounds like the IOUs that circulate for money. And the kings of the earth and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and the rocks of the mountains, and said on the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, from the wrath of the Lamb. Never give up, right?
That's a perfect example. I use that a lot.
Never, ever, ever give up.
Winston Churchill.
Yeah. That's the end of it.
All right, now we can disappear.
I know thy works and tribulation. I know the last of them.
Right now.
If ye love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or arms. Crush down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may our posterity forget that you are ever our countrymen. It behooves every man who values liberty of conscience for himself to resist invasions of it in the case of others, or their case may, by change of circumstance, become his own. When shall it be said in any country of the world, my poor are happy, neither ignorance or distress can be found among them. My jails are empty of prisoners, my streets of beggars, the aged are not in want, the tax is not oppressive, the rational world is my friend, because I am friend of its happiness. When these things can be said, then may that country boast of its constitution and government. We certainly have nothing to boast about here. But if the watchmen see the sword come, and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, and the sword come, and take away any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hands. Either you're part of the problem, you're part of the solution. You all are now watchmen. Circulate this video far and wide. Find this usable, pay it forward. And if you don't know what pay it forward means, watch the movie. There we go, that's it. So the Dissolve Your Debt manual is in the Yahoo group in the files directory. You can send me an email, I'll send it to you. But it's small enough to email. But it's in the Yahoo group in the files directory.
The perpetual travel, you get with Ted and download those on your show.
You want to give me one of your thumb drives, and I'll give you. It's in there. It's in my external drive right there.
Now you say, okay, don't ever give hearsay evidence against yourself, right? So I tried that, and they said, you're going to give us evidence. We're going to pull you out of the car. We're going to break your window, whatever. You're going to give us ID before we leave here, right? Ultimately, I did because I didn't know what else to do.
I got
in the back of the car.
beat up. I never did many of them.
So I guess the question is
So how far do I take? That's my choice.
You have to decide that, but also is bring up the issue of the war crimes, okay? So are you threatening me? Are you engaging in war crimes here? You see what I'm saying?
file a complaint if they do
Right,
get you.
I should take that I didn't know, I wasn't that educated to the war
Right.
crimes portion by
Right.
that, so I just said.
Threatening and intimidating you is war crime.
Right.
And under the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilians in a time of war of 1949. So I just summarize it. Under the Geneva Conventions of 1949, you're threatening me, which is a war crime. And they know that the U.S. has signed on to the Geneva Conventions.
When they question you and you're not under oath or anything like that, a lot of times they'll send someone in to talk with a parole officer or whatever. What they're doing is collecting parole evidence, and that's parole with an E. And they can use that evidence and make statements, but there's no way for you to challenge it or verify that they're lying. And find a lot of cases where they do that. Unknowingly, you're giving away information